Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Are You Strong show. Man, I got a treat tonight. I typically interview one person at a time, but now I have two people, and I had the privilege to be on their podcast, The Standard, which was really cool. We're going to talk about that. But before I say their names, I want to kind of give a little background on both, like I typically do. The first person we're going to talk about earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Colorado, Boulder. She's the co-founder and CEO of Blueprint the Blue Chip, which we're going to talk about that tonight. Co-founder and CEO of Ignite, Elevate, and Ascend Consulting. The co-host of, like I just said before, the Standard podcast, which we're going to talk about, which I was a guest on. Leadership coach with the Center of Leadership at the University of Colorado, Boulder. Former regional director of Orange Theory Fitness, which is a huge gym chain around the country. Former district manager of 24 Hour Fitness. Former district manager of Starbucks, which is Starbucks is all about the what? The experience. You know what I mean? You walk in, you spend $400 on a cup of coffee, but you have a great experience, right? The former general manager of leadership development executive with Athleta, great company. Executive coach to business leaders, founders, and leadership teams. Works with athletes, parents, coaches, and organizations to develop long-term leadership and character. I don't want to say her name yet because now I'm going to introduce the other guy, right? Then we're going to announce the other names. But this other person, former University of Arizona football player. Okay, I hate to say the word former. We all hate that, right?
Right.
But had a career-ending neck injury and 25 years in sports performance and rehabilitation. Runs Ironmans. Got to talk about that, right? And he cycled Route 66 coast to coast for over 2,400 miles. That's just insane. Co-creator and CEO of Blueprint to Blue Chip also. So these you can see why they're together tonight. Co-host of the Standard podcast, but author. And I have both books. This is on YouTube for anybody who's watching. I got both books right here. We're going to chat about those, and I can't wait to read them. Haven't done it yet, but I'm going to and put it on my book review. But bike, run, date, my road to Ironman, fueled by cocaine, booze, and sex. We're going to talk about that. Then author of F Bomb, from average to asset. Welcome to the show, Thomas Roe and Erin Sarles Bowers.
Wow, Jeff, what an introduction. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. What an honor.
Yeah, I am so excited to have you two. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, because what's really cool, well, before in a second, but really cool is we've been bouncing back and forth, interviewing the same people a lot,
Right,
Yes.
which I,
right.
I thought was just so cool. So listen, before I ask you guys a ton of questions, can you just do me a quick favor? The audience is probably wondering, who are these people? How are they connected? Can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and we'll kind of roll from there?
All right.
Whoever wants to go first.
Sounds great. Basically, whenever we get on a call or a podcast with somebody, I always go first. So chivalry is going to be on the back seat here.
Okay.
Sorry, Erin. We're not going to do ladies first. So, Jeff, what I do here in Denver, I'm a sports performance coach, and I've been doing it for 25 years. I've mentored a lot of high school kids, and I think we're going to get into the meat of that in this
Yep.
in this meeting. You and I have talked about this before. Not everyone is designed to go D1, right?
Yeah.
So there's wonderful colleges and university at the D2, D3, NAIA level, and we want to make sure that kids get an opportunity to go play sports at a school that matches their skill set. And that's exactly what I did. And Erin and I have 100% placement, not scholarships, but placement with schools, right? And then when Erin and I met 2 years ago, she asked me what I did. I told her, and I didn't realize that she had two high school athletes at the time. And, I told her a little bit about what I did. And she said, well, it seems like you only focus on bigger, faster, stronger. And I was like, yeah, that's my job. And she's like, well, what about the character? What about who the athlete is off the field? How about when they retire from sports? And I said, arrogantly, that's not my problem. And she said, well, it should be. You should, this is something you need to focus on. And
Yeah.
incredible insight. And then, so what she did is we got on a call, much like this podcast. We talked to two of our high school athletes. At the end of the call, Erin said, I think we're onto something. Let me put together a deck and a proposal, and then 2 years later, we're sitting here on your podcast. And the amount of people that we've met along the way with that have the same pedigree and the same commitment to service like yourself. And with that, I'll turn it over to Erin.
Okay. So, really all I'd add, I mean, is number one, I'm a mom. And how I got into the athlete development space was for my own two kids. So I have an 18-year-old softball player and a 16-year-old football player. And I saw, I think, the gap that existed in what my children were receiving. So you want to set your kids up for success, hitting
Yeah.
lessons, catching lessons, you name it. But I was seeing that there was an opportunity to create a space within the athletic development field that focused on the identity of the human being, the person, who they are on and off the field, and how can you anchor that in and use sports as a tool to grow that,
Yeah.
but not just focus on the performance so
Yeah.
that when it ends, because it's always going to end for the athlete,
Right.
I want them to know who they are well beyond that and to have interests and other hobbies that fuel their passion and desires. And so that's really what the inception of Blueprint to Blue Chip was that identity development well beyond the
Yeah.
playing field.
I mean, that is so awesome, and it is so true about athletes' lives, their sports lives. Everybody ends,
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
and I'll give you the challenge though is when they're new, they don't believe it. When
That's
they're
right.
young, 18, 19, 20, like, it's going to go forever. I was down at Monmouth University, a school out here in Jersey, talking to the football team yesterday, all the freshmen. And I'm like, how many guys think you're gonna make it to the next level? And they're all, the hands go through the roof. And I'm like, you don't even understand. There's like 20 of them in the room. I'm like, you don't even understand that most of you guys are never gonna even get out of, you won't even make it to the end of 4 years due to injury, whatever, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that's the first hurdle,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like some of these guys are just gonna quit just because it's just too hard.
Correct.
Yep.
you know and then some of these guys are maybe might get to the next shot but not make it,
Correct.
and but they're all like, I'm gonna do it, and but that's great to think that way,
I totally agree.
It
you
is.
know
Totally agree.
and there's no, I didn't say that to them, when I was in front
No.
of them. I'm like, let's go, let's make it happen, but they all start that way, and then
Yep.
dreams get shattered,
Yep.
and Aaron, to your point, so few people talk about, well, what are you preparing for next?
That's right.
Because they don't think there's going to be a next,
Right.
So we're
Yep.
going to get into all that, which is really cool. So we're going to bounce around a little bit. Now let's go backwards in time, just a little bit for both of you, right?
Okay.
And now, Thomas, I'm going to ask you first. Football, University of Arizona, neck injury. Can we just talk about how that experience shaped your direction of how you've decided to move forward when that happened? Let's start there.
Well, Jeff, great segue, because I was that guy at 19. When you asked who's going to play at the next level, my
Yeah.
hand shot up. I think maybe I even stood up to
Yeah.
draw attention to myself. Got the neck injury, and the same surgeon, Dr. Ronald Rich at UCLA, I'm sure he has since retired, was the same surgeon for the Rams and the Raiders, right?
Okay.
And he said to me, after the second time, I came back too fast. I popped it again in practice. And he said, if you keep this up, you're going to be in a wheelchair. It's time to find a new hobby. And I was there with my dad, and it was a rough one. It was
Yeah.
a rough go of it. And then, and Erin and I have met this with so many athletes, and so have you, Jeff. Depression sets in because that was your
Oh,
identity. That was
instantly.
that was your identity. And something that I don't even think you knew, Erin, the very next semester, Jeff, I took 5 classes, got 3 Fs, a D, and a C. Right. My identity was wrapped up in sports. And that's actually when my dad said, I think it's time for you to transfer,
Yeah.
because you're going to start to see a lot of your classmates go on to do the things that you wanted to do.
But hey, Thomas, real quick, can I ask you a question around those grades?
Yeah.
You were probably in the heat of misery,
100%.
right? Did you even care?
No,
Exactly.
no.
You know what I mean? That's how deep it gets.
Yep. And I'll tell you this, a really close friend of the family, his name is Chris Cheney. He played for the I think it was 1972 USC national championship. And he was a friend of the family. He came over, and he's the one that had the same conversation that Erin and I have with athletes today, 3-4 decades later, is that ultimately every football player has to hang up their cleats. Some of them get to do it on their terms, and most of them, if you're lucky enough to walk away, you get a chance to walk away. But it's time, Thomas. It's time. It's time to find a new avenue. It's time to find a new identity and a new outlet. And but the thing that was really powerful for me is he said, but what I want you to do is I want you to sit in it right now. I want you to smell it. I want you to taste it. And I want you to feel it, because right now you're not a failure, but you feel like you failed. And you couldn't have been more right, because you're absolutely right, Jeff. I just didn't care. I didn't care. I was like, this is it. I'm done. It's over. And that's horrible for a 19 or 20-year-old kid to say that.
Yeah. Because they look like they have forever to go.
Correct.
Right. So Erin, you kind of answered this question already, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You talked
Okay.
about your two kids is what's like kind of inspired you to get into this athletic space, right? But you could have just been a traditional mom and said, "Okay, good luck, and I'll take you to practice, and I'll watch your games, and I'll pat you on the back and hug you when things are tough." But what inspired you to take that leap now, into the athletic space, and leading athletes?
That's such a great question. I think I was when I saw, there's only so much you can do as a parent sometimes, which is enough. I
Yeah.
would tell parents listening, what you're doing is enough. So I think a couple of things that led me to it is maybe not getting it right as a parent, maybe pushing too hard with certain things too young, with my athletes. But I think then watching their struggles and them not finding their footing, and
Mhm.
their confidence being tied to how the performance went. And so it was like, okay, I can be loving as a mom, but what has to shift in the industry, doing consulting work for youth athletic brands as well, and seeing that gap. And it's like, you can give them all the skills in the world, but it was like, okay, what's not translating here for
Mm.
my kids? There's more to this than just having a hitting coach or having a catching coach
Yeah.
or working on your speed and agility. It was like, okay, there's something missing. And watching the rise and the fall of, how their confidence ebbed and flowed. And it's like, how do I anchor into you how I see you as a parent, which of course, as a parent, you think that they're incredible, as I
Yeah.
think all parents do, but in a way that's for all athletes, that your identity is well beyond the playing field. And so just watching them, I think, go through the challenges and the struggles, going, how can I impact this for my kids and other kids that were on my kids' sports teams, watching how their parents interacted with them. It was like this now becomes a mission and a calling, because we as parents can show up differently to give these kids, I think, what they need in order to succeed and excel.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. You got two of your own kids. How did they receive that? Were they like, "Hey, mom, this is great," or like, "What are you crazy? What are you doing?"
And let's go with you're crazy.
Right? Like, stay out of
You
my
know,
life.
people are like, how do they? It's like, I can't coach my own kids. I'm their mom. First and foremost, they see me as mom. I'm just, I'm going to be the perpetual cheerleader, giving them the vision of who I see them as,
Yeah.
and working through the challenges. But I can't coach my own kids. But I think kids need a coach, and that's where I think it was so powerful when Thomas and I partnered up, was them having somebody else that they could go to and talk to, and have things as parents that you tell them get reinforced by somebody else, because we all know all of our kids, they have like they become deaf to
Oh,
parents.
yeah.
And so it's powerful for them to have a mentor and somebody else that's in their corner that can guide them, and that they can go to. That, Thomas doesn't run back to me and go, okay, Erin, here's everything wrong with your kids. I want them to solve it and work through it. And I still want to be their parent. And
Yeah.
so I think that's some of the magic that happens at Blueprint, is helping the parents become better parents, but then helping the kids have a space where they can really find
Yeah.
themselves and not have mom and dad in every aspect of their life,
Yeah.
but they're getting really great guidance about where they need to be going.
And sometimes the parents are they're their biggest enemies.
Yes.
Agreed.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
Yep.
it's like stay, just sit over there and watch. Let
Yes.
us do our job, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they want to debate you. My kid's the greatest in the world, and you
Yeah,
know,
it's like just don't even show up, drop them off and leave. Like
yeah,
just don't even stick around sometimes, you know. That's where my kids are at. Mom, it's like, can I stay and watch practice? And then I'm thinking, they don't even want you to watch practice, Aaron. Like just
yeah,
get in the car and go. You can ask them, hey, how'd it go? But allow them to tell you,
yeah,
and silence is can become your friend. I know it can be very awkward, but I will tell you, like learning to sit in that silence and allowing them to open up, that's where the magic really happens because then
yeah,
you're not prying it out of them.
yeah. Your silence sometimes is golden,
Agreed.
Yes.
right? Right. So Thomas, adversity. I mean, you got hit with it at 19, right? What do you think that taught you then? And and when did you realize, hey, you know what happened to me was a good thing?
Wow, Jeff, that's a great question. And honestly, decades later, I think I'm still trying to unpack that. I think that was I destined to get hurt? I don't know. I only played when we were up by 20 or down by 20, right? So if I would have gone to a smaller university, that's a conversation I'll have with God at another time if it
Yeah,
was in the cards. But what I think at that point, what I had to, when I realized is I had to mentor kids and I had to just really make sure that these young men and women had an opportunity to go on and play at the next level. Back to what you talked about where you met with these 19-year-old kids. I always told them, listen, the probability of you going pro or the probability of you going to the Olympics is really small. I'm not here to rain on your parade. I'm just simply here to create options for you guys to make an informed decision, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah,
get it. No plan B, let's burn the boats. That's admirable. But let's
yeah.
let's you know, let's also prepare for the future. So I think that in hindsight now, I would have to say that the injury didn't happen to me; it happened for me to give
Yep.
me an opportunity to work with the next generation.
Because you might not be here right now doing what you're doing.
No doubt, no doubt, 100%.
Which is that's why I was like you just said it. Things don't happen to us,
Right,
but sometimes when it does happen, we'll think, "Oh, woe is me." Like we
right,
go into that valley of despair, right? And we
right.
sit down there and we sulk, and we blame the whole world.
Correct.
And instead of saying, "Okay, well, what can I get or do from this?"
Right,
versus what did it do to me?
right,
Right? Which is,
right.
but it's hard as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20, even 25. It's hard to get out
Yep,
of that funk,
yep.
which is nuts.
And even more than that, and you and I, we talked about, we've already touched on it. One of the things that Erin and I really want to do is, my identity was wrapped up in my sport and my position, right?
Yeah.
And that's where athletes are, is they wrap up their identity in their sport and
Yeah.
their position.
Yeah. Because you know what happens is if I'm a good athlete and I'm off the people watch me perform, then I go to a function, I go to a party, I go to a family's whatever. Like, oh, what a great game. Oh, what a good this, what a good that. Oh, that was so cool. Like, that must have been great. And then when the game stops
Right.
and you go back to those parties and functions and they have nothing to say to you.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to say, "Well, how's your grade point average? How's school? How's your?" They don't even know what to say, so they say nothing,
Right.
and you walk around like nobody cares anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then that depression starts to seep deeper
Yep.
because you're like nobody cares about me anymore.
Yeah. I
Yep.
call that the leprosy effect, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Just no one wants to be around you. They're just like,
yeah,
oh no, and you're like, oh, I guess that's who I was,
yeah.
and then you have to redefine who you are and recreate it.
It's nuts. So, Erin, your
Yes.
your leadership journey has been unique and different, right? You
Yes.
know, so what experience have you gone through that convinced you that because I know you talk a lot about character,
Yep.
how and character is it more important or just as important, either one, than talent alone? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So how my journey shaped, I think, character is, I think, what I saw every day. either as a leader within corporate America or when I became a consultant and strategist, is even at the C-suite level, people's identity is tied up in their title and who they are in that realm, and teasing apart like you're a whole and complete human being. And so when I actually went and got my one thing I wanted to really enhance was my coaching ability as an executive and as a leader. And I went off and got my certification, and it was just so profound to actually work on your ability to coach other individuals. It's not taught in corporate America, it's not tactical, like how do you get something out of somebody, but how you see people. And so that was a transformational part of my journey, was really understanding and seeing, a cornerstone of the coaching program I got certified through is seeing people as whole and complete.
Yeah.
And even understanding my children came into this world whole and complete. I'm not here to fix them. I'm not here to add to them. I'm here to help them be in an environment where they can reveal and express the full version of themselves. And so I think character is equally, as if not more important than your talent. I don't think you can express your talent at the level that God intends you to express it if you don't have the character
Yeah.
to be able to um, go forth in the world and actually express it. Like if you're
Yeah.
lacking character, and we see it all the time. I think of a Tiger Woods, incredible talent, but when character gets into question and things create pressure,
Yeah.
he's never gotten to the level that he was at previous to everything falling apart. And so it's like you've got to have the I think the character in order to express and sustain the talent.
I think a character enhances your talent.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Or it tears it like Tiger Woods, great example. How about let's flip it the other side where character enhances Derek Jeter, right?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, like he still lives right around me somewhere. I don't know where, somewhere in North Jersey. And in his entire career, even when he was 22, 23, you never saw him out. Never in the bars, never in
Right.
trouble, never carousing, never with nothing ever.
Yep.
Then you wonder, like, is this guy real? Does he actually exist or what? But then there's other, again, I'm literally 20 miles outside of New York City, and I see and hear on the local stuff all the time. All these young kids, just their character is just like, what are they doing?
Yep.
Right.
And then it affects them on the court, on the field, or on wherever, and then it just follows them.
Correct.
Yep.
And like it's hard to get rid of it. Like you said, Tiger Woods, like it's always like, what's he gonna do next?
Yep.
And it's
Yeah.
almost like you're worried, like, what's he gonna do next, character-wise, versus when's he gonna play again?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. Um, so blueprint to blue chip, right? So Erin, I'm gonna ask you first,
Okay.
okay? Is what inspired that?
Ooh, well, Thomas came up with the name. So, but what inspired that, I think for me, or how I resonate with it, is I think everybody has the capacity to be a blue chip, to be the elite of the elite. If you really understand who you are, you get connected in with that and become authentic in your expression of that. And that's different for everybody. So I think also understanding like we're not in a comparison game. The only comparison game you're here to take part in is the one with yourself.
Right.
Really looking in yourself in the mirror, understanding who you are, getting really real and honest. When we do our coaching or work with these athletes, it's like, you can tell me this is great, but if it's not, the only person you're hurting is you. You're not helping me out by saying this is working or it's effective or whatever happening. You have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and honestly answer that. And so I want every athlete to become the blue chip. I want every athlete to become the fullest expression of themselves and to positively contribute and get the most out of this life. And that's really what my kind of inspiration and motivation is behind the name, is I think everybody has the capacity to be at that level if they choose to do it.
Cool. So Thomas, two part question. Where did the name come from? How did you come up with that? And then, 25 years you've been working with people, right?
Right.
And what patterns have you seen that made you realize that, hey, you know what, something's got to change here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jeff, you and I are of the age, I think when we were coming up, it was called blue chip athletes, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
think maybe, Aaron, we should change it from 5-star to all-star. We should change
Okay.
That's a good one too. That's a good one.
from five because now everyone's a star athlete,
Star.
but
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah,
but when I was growing up, it was like, who you want to be a
yeah,
blue chip athlete, and what does that
yep.
mean? And something my dad would always say, and he was a phenomenal man, mentor of mine. He's like, look, son, there are no blueprints in life. You got to create it.
Mm,
Everyone has a different path, right?
that's
So
cool.
that's when I was like, okay, when I got together with Aaron, I said, you know what? If we create the blueprint, we can create a blue chip. And then along the way,
Wow.
to answer your second part, we understand, you and I have both seen, all three of us have seen blue chip athletes, right? We know they're going to go to Notre Dame. We know they're going to go to Ohio State to play sports, right? But then you have your fringe athletes that have the mental, but they don't have the physical,
Hmm.
right? And then how do we combine the two to make a blue chip athlete? And then
Yeah,
we have what are called the worker bees. Those are the athletes that are probably never going to put on a football helmet after high school or bounce a ball, but they can now with D2, D3, and
yep,
NAIA. Doesn't I mean, you're still going to be a blue chip in your respective sport and division. You're just probably not going to play on Sunday, but it doesn't mean you can't play at the next level. So that was kind of the inception. And Jeff, you're going to relate to this because I know you played football. When you and I were coming up, there was no transfer portal unless you wanted to sit for a year, or unless
unless you want to become an outcast.
there you go. And
Yeah,
I was at Arizona. This is no shade to Steve Kerr, but I was there with Steve Kerr and Sean Elliott and JT Snow and Trevor Hoffman. These are the guys that I knew that I would see around the sports facility. We knew about the $100 handshakes, right? But
mm,
now
yeah,
NIL has actually restructured and redefined the game to where Aaron and I are dealing with athletes, Jeff, that look me right in the eye and they go, "Hey, coach, you said I'm not going pro, so I need to get a bag." And I was like, wow, so you're not even motivated by the sport anymore. You just want to
yeah.
get paid.
Money. Yeah,
That's it. And rightfully so. I do believe that they should be played. And that's a whole nother podcast that we could get into. And Mark and Matt, my two younger brothers who were high school All-Americans, they went on to play at San Diego State. They blocked for Marshall Faulk. And that's when I realized college is a business, right?
yeah,
And you have a generational athlete like Marshall Faulk that comes along, and I was like, wow, this is absolutely phenomenal. I'll tell you a quick story, and this will kind of hit it home as far as athletes getting paid. When the Chargers left, they tore down the Qualcomm Stadium or Jack Murphy Stadium, right? And they built Snapdragon Stadium for San Diego State. Coincidentally, they played Arizona for their first game of the season 2 or 3 years ago. We went to the game, and there were students in the stands, Jeff, that were wearing Marshall Faulk's jersey that weren't even born yet.
we're even born yet. Yeah,
And Marshall doesn't get a dime of that. So again, that's a whole nother conversation. So, earlier you asked the question about character. Right now, Aaron and I are dealing with with athletic directors and coaches at the NCAA, where they tell us the difference between a 4.7 and a 4.4 is character, right? I can, if you're 4.4, bench 300, squat 600, but if you're a distraction in my locker room, I don't want you.
yeah,
So give me somebody who's a 4.7. I could mold them and we can make them into a superstar. And that because these athletes are jumping around so much, right? Going into the transfer portal, chasing the next opportunity. And what Aaron and I try to stress so much to these athletes is how important your alumni and boosters are to you when you graduate, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
if you try to make a phone call and then the boosters of the alumni say, "Well, how long was he here for?" "Oh, he was just here for a year. Then he went to LSU." They go, "We don't owe
we
him
don't
any."
care. Yeah,
Yeah, they don't
exactly.
care. They don't
Yeah.
care. Yeah,
There's no attraction to be part of the fabric anymore, or
right.
be part of the culture, the history. It's just like you said, give me the bag. If you're not going to give it to me, well, I'll go over there.
That's it.
You
That's
know,
it.
where and Nick Saban talks about this all the time about the players are all about what are you going to do for me versus it used to be, hey, I'll give anything to get on that field. I'll give anything to be on that team. Like just give me something to get
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And now it's just this like, ugh, it's crazy. I agree they should get paid. I do agree with that, but what's going on, there needs to be something set up.
Yeah.
Guardrails, something is it's getting out of control. And like the kid from Texas Tech, you see just what happened to him, the
Oh
quarterback.
yeah.
I mean, if he wasn't caught gambling, they would have let him stay because he
Right.
gambled, he can't stay.
Right.
What about the guys who got caught selling drugs and stays?
There you go.
What about the kid who's beating up his girlfriend and
Bingo.
stays? Like, what about that?
Yep.
I mean, the kid, how much did he? I don't even know how much he even bet or won or lost. Was it a substantial amount? I don't even know.
I think he placed over 9,000 bets from what I've heard. So he bet a lot. And,
All right. Was he betting on himself?
Yep.
I
They
don't
believe
think so,
so.
but he was betting on his team. And
Oh
I
boy.
think that's probably
Yeah,
where
that's the bet. That yeah, you can't be doing it. But you know what that kid needs? What does he need?
he needs
Well,
blueprint, is what I'd
yeah,
say.
he needs
He
blueprint.
needs he needs help.
Yeah.
He's got a
He
problem.
does.
Yep.
So
Yep.
instead they'll just shove it under the rug and let him
Right.
go into the NFL like Art Sleaster. Remember him?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
just used that analogy the other day.
Yeah. How many people remember him? Only people our age might
Right.
remember him, but
Right.
he never went anywhere, did much. He got in trouble all the time.
Yep.
And all he needed was what? He needed help.
Yep.
Yep.
Like this kid needs help.
Yep.
But oh my God, we can go on. That's a whole nother topic too, right? We can talk
Right.
forever on that.
Right.
But Erin, you used the phrase character infrastructure.
Yeah.
Can you what does that mean? And why do you think that that's so important, just as much as physical training is important?
Because I think why I call it character infrastructure and why I think it's more important than even the physical is it's those micro decisions you're making every day. Who are you? What are your values? And who do you want to be? And
Yeah.
every decision you make is a negotiation with that future self. So if you
Mm,
want to be in the NBA, NFL, cutting short your reps when you're at the gym or not showing up 100% to practice, every one of those things is a decision you're making with your future self. And so, can you live with that decision? And are you making decisions that represent you? And then we also want to create, I think, in this world, radical ownership of who you are and the decisions you make.
mm,
You don't need to externalize any ownership or blame. That doesn't mean you're so hard on yourself that it becomes irrational, but it's like, okay, what could I have owned in that moment
yeah.
that I could have changed that outcome? It could be nothing. Nothing could have been done. I did the best I could there. I own it. I move on to the
Yeah.
next play. But we want every, I think, athlete, adult, parent to really understand like you have the ability to become who you want through every micro decision that you're making, and do those things align? What food am I putting in my body? What time I go to bed? Every one of those things is a choice,
Yeah.
and nobody external to you is influencing that. You need to take radical ownership of
Yeah.
that. And so that's what we want to anchor into these athletes.
So yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking as a parent, right? Like, where does the ownership start? Does it start with the parent? Start with the kid? How does the parent teach the kid? Does the kid listen to the parent? Like, when does that come into like when does it come together?
Well, I think for me, what I'll offer up is a going through this and having learned is like, number one, I think you set the example by the way that you live.
Yeah.
And so, how do I show up? How do I role model the behaviors that I believe are important to success in life? Am I a living example of that for my kids? Do they see me role modeling that? And then I think as parents, you have to transfer the ownership of, I think of my son. We'll just use my son for example. He has aspirations to play at the NFL. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. But if that's what you want, then here's are all the decisions you have to make in order to do that. And these are your choices. If you decide you don't want to do that anymore, totally cool. I'm fine with that. You just have to understand what it takes to get there and what are your choices in relationship to that. And you have to show up for that. I think we're enablers as parents nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we want to make this life so easy for you. Like it's freaking hard. Not really. And it's like, you have a choice. I can't lay out your uniform. I can't wash all your clothes. doesn't mean I'm not helpful as a mom, but it's like them understanding this is your responsibility. Do you want to be to practice 15
Yeah.
minutes early, or do you want to be the one that's rushing in like, oh shit, I hardly have my cleats on and I look disheveled? Like those are choices and decisions you have to make for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's role modeled by your own behaviors and actions. I think of like
Yeah.
being on time. I learned that through my dad, through his actions, the way he showed up, the way he, you know, is with everything. It's like we're 20 minutes early, and that's still late in my dad's book,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I love. But those set the standard for your
Yeah.
family, and so are your kids watching that. You can't be going, "Hey, kids, be on time," and then it's like mom's never on time to anything. Mom's trying to do the dishes as she leaves the house, and we were supposed to be somewhere 15 minutes ago. So
Yeah.
you have to lead by example.
Yeah. And you said a big word, standard,
Yeah.
which
Mm-hmm.
is where your podcast come from. Right? Yeah. Like, are you setting the standard? And
Right.
who sets the standard? But Thomas, you talk about character, discipline, integrity,
Right.
right? When, how has that become so important more today than ever?
Well, we touched on it earlier about the transfer portal and
Yep.
young athletes being motivated by money. And it's kind of a 1-2 punch. When Erin and I defined bigger, faster, stronger, and we all know what that means, right?
Mhm.
And then we came up with character, integrity, and discipline with every step. Whether you step into the classroom, whether you step into the weight room, whether you step onto the field or court. And the only way you're going to get better with character, integrity, and discipline is get the reps. And here's the crazy thing, this is not a gotcha question. It's not we're trying to corner you. But when we talk to an athlete and we say, tell us what bigger, faster, stronger means to you, they could rattle it off
Yep.
rather quickly. Then we ask them, okay, what does character, integrity, and discipline mean to you? And it's astonishing, Jeff, how they just go blank and they go
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
And then it's led with, they answer a question with a question. Do you want the textbook definition, or do and I'm like, just tell me what it means to you.
Yeah.
And it's puzzling. And that's when, and I give kudos to Erin, because she's really the one that came up with that. It was a great compliment to bigger, faster, stronger, character, integrity, and discipline with every step. So, get the reps, make sure you understand it's just as important as doing the free throw. It's just as important running your routes. It's just as important hitting the weight room. And the tail end of that is with every step, make sure it's a part of your life with every step.
Yeah. It goes back to the standard again.
There you go.
Right? Is it being built in, and does it
Right.
become automatic?
Right.
Just like everything else in sports, many times everything is just automatic, and then when there's no standard, it just falls apart.
Yep.
Correct.
So Aaron, a lot of athletes invest in we already said before, like the skill development, the
Yep.
physical, right? But very little in the identity development, and you guys talk about that a lot, and it's out of balance now.
It is.
And how do we bring that back into some sort of balance or focus so people can understand that both are extremely important?
Yeah. You almost can't have one without the other. And I would argue creating a strong identity actually enhances the skill development when you understand who you are, and then how you have ownership in the way you show up to those lessons. I can
Hmm.
think of, my daughter, and hitting lessons and stuff. Like if she would have had, I think, some of the stuff that we've now designed to help her then anchor in when she went to the actual hitting lesson. It's like that's when the magic, I think, really happens, is they have to be able to translate it and hold it and then take it to the actual game and field, versus like, okay, I'm going to do this, but then it's like, okay, we're over here and you're not getting any better. Like
Yeah.
what's happening? And so I think having the athlete understand, who you are, how do you then make decisions from that? How do I have radical ownership of that, of me and my responsibilities here as an athlete on this field with my team in this moment? And then how do I make choices and decisions from that that actually enhance who I am and enhance the team around me? And
Yeah.
I firmly believe this is the thing that's missing for all athletes. And I also think it starts with the parent. Are we focused on who your kid is and not about the performance you want them to have as an athlete? You know, if I just fixate on, I want my son to be the best defensive end in football in the state of Utah, well, I'm losing sight of who my son is. You know, smart kid. He loves to be outside. He loves to hang out with his friends. You know, all these things. It's
He
like, I
big?
want him
He
to,
a big guy?
he's a big guy. He's 6'2", 210 right now, and he's
And how old is he?
16.
16? My God.
So he's like, I'm not going to grow anymore. I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
no,
right.
I think you're
He's
going
going to
to
grow
be.
5 more inches and gain 40 more pounds,
Correct.
I'm like,
right?
don't worry about that
Oh
right
my
now.
God. I can only
Just go
imagine
ahead.
your food bill.
Oh, it's insane. I'm like, oh my God, how much can you eat or
Yeah.
not eat would
Yeah.
be the better question. So
But
it's like, you want them to know who they are. I
yeah,
want him to be so anchored in his identity. Like, some of my proudest moments of him is who he is on the sideline with his teammates, the way he
yeah,
high fives them, the way he congratulates them. It's like, those are the things I also reinforce,
yeah,
because it's like, that's you being a good human being. And it's
yeah,
not about just what you're doing out on the field to
yeah.
maybe get a scholarship or whatever. So I think that's important, and I think it starts with us as parents. Like, are we focused on them versus like what's their output,
Yeah.
you know, or can I get a scholarship for my kid or whatever that might be? You got to focus on who they are.
Yeah. This is a crazy question. I've just thought of this one. Um, do you guys see that through all the athletes you're talking to, it's almost like they have multiple personality issues or disorders, if that's the right way. And like they act this way on the court, this way around their friends, this way with their family. And sometimes they don't know how to kind of pull it together.
Correct.
You see
One,
that a lot?
Oh
oh
yeah.
yeah, I think because they want to impress. It's like, am I impressing my friend? Am
Yeah.
I pressing? How am I supposed to be with my parents? Or I get to, I think, relax and be myself around my parents. So I'm,
Yeah.
a little more, um, I'm less guarded. And it's like, that's, I think, what we want. We want you to be you, whether
Yeah.
you're with your coaches, with your teammates, with your parents, with your friends. And that also means you might not be popular with your friends. It might mean, hey guys, I'm not going out on Friday night because I have to do X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
Saturday morning, or I have camp or whatever. And so I think having them own who they are, and so they're not people pleasing, they're not trying to put on a show, because eventually that all gets discovered.
Agreed.
And, when we talk to NFL scouts, and, they're really vetting, who is this person? What is their character?
Yeah.
How do they show up? And they're looking for consistency. They want to know that the guy in the weight room is the guy on the basketball court or the football field. That's the same guy that was in the classroom and talks to his mom and dad with the utmost respect.
Yeah. And people pleasing, that is so huge for the younger kids, right? They just because they want to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, that's adults do the same thing, but
Sure.
it's even harder for the kids, you
Sure.
know. So Thomas, injury, right? Your entire athletic world was taken from you, right? No choice.
Right.
You have choice. It is what it is. And athletes' careers end either they never end because they wanted to. It's because somebody said, doctor says you can't play anymore, or a coach says you're not good enough anymore. That's it.
Right.
There's really no other reason why it stops, right?
Right.
But what advice could you give to the young athletes today might have just gone through that same injury scenario? Doctor
Mhm.
says, that's it, you're done, you're out. What advice can you give them to handle that, knowing what you know now?
Look at it as a blessing, because it really is. You know, again, back to you, and I know you can relate to this, Jeff. You and I both played football, and my brothers and I, this was just a couple years ago. They were offensive linemen, left and right tackles, and we were at dinner. I think it was either Thanksgiving or Christmas, and I said, "How many concussions do you think you had?" And my brother goes, "Confirmed." And I was like,
Yeah,
"What a great answer!"
yeah,
Right? And what we know now, because keep in mind, I played in the late 80s and early 90s. Mark and Matt played in the mid to late 90s. And what we know now, and you and I, when we showed up, we got whatever helmet they gave us. Erin and her ex-husband have spent $1,000 on getting a custom made helmet for her son in high school.
Oh yeah.
My dad was like, okay, you got a choice, either Rydell or bike, pick it up, whichever helmet, fits for you.
It's better. Yeah.
You're right. So my answer is it's a blessing. Look at it as a blessing, because at the end of the day, it really is. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, to kind of to piggyback on your question earlier. It didn't happen to you. It happens for you, right? It's a
Yeah.
blessing. It's a blessing.
Concussions. It's so funny you say the word confirmed. Because with all the guys I play with, my last football season was 1986.
Okay.
So that's how far back it goes, right? And the helmets we had, we thought at the time were state of the art because they probably were then. And now you look at them, you're like, you wore that thing?
Yeah.
And throughout my career, I had six confirmed concussions.
There,
Six.
there you go.
And I can tell you, there were times where like I know I had one, but guess what you don't do? You don't tell anybody.
Do you remember this one, Jeff? Are you hurt or are you injured?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And like, okay, you can get back out there. Oh, you know what? Your right shoulder's hanging, right? It's literally falling out of socket. You're on the left side of the field, so that means you lead with your right. We'll just move you on the other side.
That's
We'll
it.
move the other guy over there, and you can
Yeah.
just flip flop and then rip that shoulder apart. Oh, you know what? End of the season. Oh, you know what? We got to fix that.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like don't get me going on that one. You know. Um, so Aaron, how can the athletes today start building their identity now so it's not such a burden, so hard to do later?
My advice, my one glimmer, like small actionable item you could do, like take some quiet time and spend time with yourself and just inventory. What do you love to do? What do you like? Who do you want to be? What do you think your calling here is here? What is your purpose? What makes you happy? I think we're in such a world filled with so much noise and constant feedback. I mean, I don't even think we're really wired for it as human beings, to be completely honest. We have instantaneous data. I can look up and see what my friends are doing because of social media.
Yeah.
But it's like if you just even took like 5 minutes and just said, okay, why did God put me here? What makes me happy? What do I love? What do I want to do? And think of those things, and spend time, make time to be doing those things. If you love
Yeah.
to cook, or you love to fish, or you love to hunt, or you love to play other sports like maybe golf or whatever, that's not your traditional sports, having friends that don't play sports, just
Yeah.
having things outside that go, gosh, that really interests me. What interests you? Read about it, learn about it, explore it.
Yeah.
And I think as parents, like really, I think cultivating that, do you ask curious questions? Do you make sure your kid has time to do stuff like that, where it's not sports, sports, sports 24/7. Are we lifting? Are we eating? Are we going to practice? Versus like, hey, what, you got some downtime. What fun things are we going to do today or this week so that you have some balance
Yeah.
when it comes to that. And so I think it's just, we've got to allow these kids some quiet time to find out who they are,
Yeah.
um, and be able to express that, and
Yeah.
know that all of it's good. If you like to knit as a guy,
Go knit.
great, keep
Go knit.
knitting. If you
Yeah.
like to play the tuba, do it.
Yeah.
Like I think, don't be weirded out by what you like that your friends don't. You've got to know who you are and be comfortable with that. And so take the time to spend time doing that.
Yeah. Well, you talked about taking a break, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and if you look at the football teams right now, they're year round.
Yeah.
I was down at Monmouth yesterday. What's today? It was June 17th. and their freshmen were already on campus for the summer.
Right.
Yep.
Like when I was a freshman, we showed up August 10th. We,
Yep.
we literally had the summer to, okay, work out on our own, which I don't know if that was good or not, but to enjoy the summer.
Right.
Mhm.
These kids, it's college football, the D1 level, it's year round,
Yep.
and I'm sure you got all these other sports that are doing the same thing. These kids don't get breaks. And they're
Nope.
actually told you can't take a break. You want to get to this level, you want to get up here, you can't take a break.
Right.
And I think that's where these kids suffer. Then they say, "Well, Aaron, I don't know what else to do for fun. I've
Right.
had no
Yep.
time to think about it." So how do we handle that?
Well, I think that also starts with the coaches as well. I think coaches have to set a tone. Like, in order for you to win, you want to have the most whole and complete human beings on your team, that are well rounded, because they know who they are. That's good mental health. And it's much younger. I mean, my son has lived it now for the first 2 years of high school. We're in it right now as parents. It's like it goes all the time. You have 1 week off. It's like we have 1 week window if you want to have family vacation because of
Yeah,
football. And you're in high school. It's like this. There has to be balance, but they
yeah,
know if I take time off, I'm not going to maybe get the playing time I want, or maybe I'm costing myself a starting job. Or opportunity. And so we've created this, I think, within sports, where it's not just fun, but it's like we're in this all the time. I mean, they
yeah,
lift year round as a team. I mean, it's like 6 a.m. lifts. It's like every day of the week. It's like, okay, they're in high school. This is great. There's good discipline in it. But are you also offering them perspective of this is building a healthy lifestyle and routine for yourself,
yeah,
not you're going to live or die by coming to this, or you're not going to be playing. So I think that all starts with the coach and the culture that the coach is trying to set, so that the
yeah,
kids have some understanding of why you're doing it, but how is this developing skills and habits beyond the playing field or
yeah,
wins and losses. And so I think we have to reframe that a bit. And I think understanding they are 16-year-olds old. If they need to go on a family vacation, not during your state week moratorium that
yeah,
the
yeah,
states now have put into place, because otherwise these coaches would never allow these kids to have
yeah,
time off.
yeah.
And
And
so,
if they took time off, they held it against them.
yep,
Which
exactly.
is nuts. So Thomas, Ironman, are you crazy? How many have you done?
So as far as a full Ironman, one, and honest to God, Jeff, I've said this, like I've done, and this is just give perspective. This isn't bragging or boasting. I've done countless half marathons,
Yeah,
full marathons, half Ironmans. But when I was done with the full Ironman, I was like, okay, done. I could check that box. I don't know. I don't need to go back and do that one again. So
yeah.
I was
Well,
glad that I did it.
well, tell people really what I know what it encompasses. People are like, what? People might be listening. I say, Ironman, what is that?
2.4 mile swim,
Which is
112
insane
112-mile bike ride, and a full marathon at the end.
in
So
one day,
in one day,
at
yeah.
one time. And you don't stop. How,
Now,
Jesus, how the hell did you do it?
honestly, you cannot phone that in. You really have to. I fell in love with the process, right? And
Have to.
I've used this story before. I will never compare myself to Erin giving birth, but there is a little bit of postpartum when you're done, because you spend a year preparing for that,
Yeah.
right? And once you do the race, and then when you're done, you're celebrating, you're having fun, and then you go, okay, what now?
What's next?
What's next, right? Yeah, once you do the recovery, and I'm sure it's no different than somebody that wins a championship. They enjoy it and they bask in the glory, and then they take a little time off, and then they go, okay, what do we have? Do we have to repeat now? What's the next step? So, the whole process was just magical for me. I just really
Sure.
fell in love with the process, because it was the mental fortitude that really kind of challenged me on the days that you got up and you're like, I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense. I don't have Nike and Adidas waiting for me at the finish line. And, I had to, Saturday nights, I had to forfeit going out with friends. I had to miss Sunday brunches, and that was my
Yeah.
choice. That was my choice.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it and I loved it.
So any type of long distance anything endurance brings you to a deep dark place sometimes
Every
with
day.
mental stress and physical pain.
Correct.
I've run marathons, a couple marathons before myself, and that mile 23, 24, the amount of pain that's in your legs and
Yep.
what's going on in your mind. Can you explain how deep and dark it got in an Ironman? Like the pain must be tremendous. And how do you block it out?
You know, I wish I had an answer for you, but I'm probably going to disclose too much, because I looked at, even though they say an Ironman is an individual sport, I had a friend, meet me at mile 20 for the marathon. He had fresh legs. I got on his hip. They call him a bandit, right? I got on his
Mhm.
hip. He was a college roommate of mine. And I just said, John, just run me in. Just run me in. And that's what he did. So you have to remind yourself that you signed up for this. No one put a gun to your head, and you carved out the entire day to do this. So just get it done. Just get it done. And the pain is temporary, but the joy and the conversation years later that the three of
Oh
us are
yeah.
having is just magical.
Oh yeah. It's in the pictures, you have pictures from it, I'm sure.
Of course.
And I'm sure every chance you get, you want to bring them up and show people if you're anything like me. As soon as I ran a marathon, I didn't
Yeah.
get right into it. So I did that, you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's just insane the amount of effort it takes to be put in that situation. And you chose to do that.
Right.
It's not
Right.
like somebody said you have to do it. You
Right.
know? So, so Aaron, when it comes to that dark place, the mental stress that athletes deal with, how do you help them understand that when it comes to identity, like this isn't, what you have to do, it's what you're choosing to do.
Mhm.
And how do you help them deal with the pressure that they put themselves under?
That's such a great question. Um, Gosh, I think it comes down to what I would share with them and what we share with them is, what is this revealing about you? So you're at this point or this moment because you want to be here. You're becoming a diamond, and diamonds only come when there's an intense amount of pressure. No athlete became great because it was easy. They became great because they learned through all the failures. And you hear every athlete talk about, I learn more from my failures than my
Yeah,
wins.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so I think really having them understand failure isn't a bad thing. I think disassociating, I think some of the societal things that we think about things and going, what is this revealing about you? What's on the other side of this that makes you even better than you are right now?
yeah.
And so learning, you hear the term like embrace the suck, but it's really
It's
like
hard to do that.
infusing, it's infusing within yourself. What is this really teaching me? And so we like our athletes to get really curious with themselves and to then ask themselves a lot of questions. I think the best conversations I've ever had are the ones I have with myself. It's like I'm having a conference call. Like people sometimes are like, "Are you talking to yourself?" I'm like, "Absolutely. I'm having my own internal conference call right now with my team of people that need to help me get through this." But getting them to understand those are normal things to do, to inquire, to ask within yourself, what is this revealing? What am I being taught right now? What's the gift that this is giving me versus like, you've talked to Thomas a lot about this, about it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. This is the greatest gift that's going to forge you into the next level. What are
Yeah,
you learning right now? And if you can harness that and learn that, you will become unstoppable. And that applies not only to athletes, but I mean executives I've worked with.
yeah,
What is this forging? You're forging yourself here. What are you learning? Sit in it, embrace it. Don't run away from the uncomfortability, lean into it because it wants to give you something so incredible. If
yeah.
you look away, you're going to miss it.
You blink, you miss it,
Yep,
Yep.
right?
so true.
All right, here we go. We got to go down this road.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll tell you, this kind of book, this exact style is my favorite.
Oh, good.
I mean, it's literally my favorite because they're they're not that long, but
Correct.
it's these are just so like these are the kind of things you can't put down.
Right.
Because when I start reading a book, I'm like, well, if I'm going to read this and I go right to how many pages, a little over 100 pages, like I can get this done in a couple hours. Let's go.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
That's it.
Versus, well, I read 5 pages here and put it down for a week, 2 weeks. It's like I'm like this book I can read Saturday morning. Let's
Correct.
go.
Correct.
And I actually get excited about that kind of stuff.
Good. Good. Good.
But so Thomas, this is your story,
Yep.
right? It's about addictions, self-destruction.
Correct.
You know, what gave you the courage to do it, to write it, to tell it?
I just had to, Erin's heard me talk about, so the Thomas that's in that book is not the Thomas that's in F bombs. So that swim, bike, run, date was basically who I was leading up to before I moved away from California. Right. And it was just the title alone. You really don't have to read the book because it'll tell you everything you need to know. Swim, bike, run, date, my road to Ironman, fueled by cocaine, booze, and sex. And you're like, okay, this guy is just a train wreck. And it's astonishing that he's still alive. But I wanted to be able to write it, one, for closure for me, but two,
Hmm.
if I could just help one individual
Yeah.
that is battling addiction, that is battling an identity crisis, that is chasing and fighting a ghost. We talked about earlier, my dad, who was an incredible mentor, 26 years in the Marine Corps.
Mm.
I was always trying to prove myself to him, and he never did that. That was me,
Yeah.
and I 55 races by the time I was 55. It was always like, is he going to be proud of me now? And this is well after he had already passed. I was fighting a ghost, and
Yeah.
that ghost was all up here. So that's what I try to share with athletes, that most of the obstacles that you're going to deal with are in your head.
So I mean, addictions, what were you addicted to?
So again, back to chasing those ghosts. I used to train on cocaine and race on Adderall, right? And then I would push so hard through the training, through the races, that inevitably you're going to get hurt, right?
Yeah.
Whether, whatever it is, a pulled muscle, this or that. So then it turned into Oxy and Percocet and pain pills. And at the end of the training, or end of the race, I had to take Xanax or Ambien just to come down, right?
Yeah.
From just, the constant loading of all the chemicals. So it was just a runaway train. My first triathlon coach, he fired me. He knew exactly what I was doing. He's like, I'm not going to be a part of this. And I was like, okay, fine. I, found another coach. He and I discussed it, and then on top of that, I was stacking HGH with testosterone, right? I was always kind of looking for an edge. Some would say you were cheating, and I would just say that I was really just fighting a lie. I was just trying to live up to expectations that nobody else created for me, but what I created for myself.
Mm. Now, how long did it take until you say, I got to fix this problem?
I'll tell you exactly. Summer of 2020 was the end of the pills. Uh, 21, I was actually at a party down in Cabo San Lucas. And mind you, this was still COVID. It was January of 2021. I was in this room, this suite down in Cabo San Lucas, and we had judges, we had police officers, we had lawyers. We were doing fentanyl drips, and all under doctor supervision. It was complete debauchery. And I remember I was sitting off to the side of the room, and I said, I'm better than this. I'm not saying I'm better than these people. I'm better than this. So that was the last time I did cocaine. And then when I did, and I will probably get into it, when I biked Route 66 at the end of the race, or at the end of the ride, which was in August of 2023. That night, my brother met me in Chicago, and I had a martini and I had a glass of wine with dinner. The next morning, after not drinking or doing anything for months leading up to this ride, the next morning I just felt like hell, and I said, okay, that's it. I don't want to feel like this anymore. So I haven't touched alcohol since summer of 2023. So we're coming up on 3 years now.
So you just did it on your own.
Just
Boom.
did it on my own. Never had to. So when I'm out with friends, people are like, hey, T-Row, do you mind if I grab a drink? I say, I'm not in recovery. I just don't
Yeah.
want to feel like shit anymore. And,
Yeah.
so I just quit cold turkey, all three of them.
You know how hard that is?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously, but I'm like, That's unheard of.
Right. But you know what? It was really interesting. I've told this to Erin. Like, I used to have cocaine in my medicine cabinet. Like, most people have vodka in their freezer, right?
Yeah.
And friends would come over. I'm like, hey, do you want a beer? Do you want a vodka? Do you want a bump? And they're like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, yeah, if you want some cocaine, it's in the medicine cabinet. And they're like, you have cocaine in the medicine cabinet and you don't do it? And I go, well, it's like having vodka in the freezer. I don't have to drink it because it's there.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I had as an athlete, you have incredible discipline, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
just, you know when to turn it on and you know when to turn it off. The problem was once I turned it on, I never did turn it off.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How much money you think you burned?
Jeff, this is a great story. So I had a bookkeeper out in LA and she pulled me aside and she's like, hey, I got to ask you, I know creatine is important, but you're spending $500 a month on creatine. I said, actually, that's cocaine. And she's like, all right, we don't need to have this conversation anymore. So, just and then she would used to say to me, when you go out, would you do me a favor on the back of the receipt? Would you write, uh, I don't know how vulgar this is going to be, B for business, P for pussy. And then I'm going to do a spreadsheet and I'm going to show you exactly where you're spending your money. And when I got the spreadsheet, it was, to answer your question, 2,500 to $3,000 a month just on booze and drugs. That's a mortgage.
Yeah. And for some people, that's not even, some people burn a lot more than that. If they got a ton of money and they're really going crim, man, hey, listen, man, I give you a ton of credit. I don't know how you did it because I have a number of friends who are recovering from all kinds of crazy stuff
Same.
from when we were kids.
Right.
If you think of the 80s, man, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And these guys have all gone on to be like ridiculously successful,
Yep.
but they've been clean for 30 plus years now.
It's
And
awesome.
I'll give you one story. One of my good friends I think we were 20, we were like 28, 29. He was married. He had a kid, 6 months old. His first Father's Day, he spent in overnight in New York City jail
Mm.
because he went into the city to buy crack. He got caught. And his wife was like, I'm not bailing you out anymore.
Yeah.
And that was an eye opener. And from there, he went and got help. He just sold his company not too long ago for 30 million bucks.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Guy who spent his first Father's Day in jail.
I love stories like this.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But the stories are just that's what this is all about.
Right. Right.
Is to share this kind of stuff because people who are going to listen to this are all athletes from somewhere. And I hope somebody says, holy crap, how did he do that? If
Yeah.
he can do it, I can do it. And
100.
what you did, I would say 99 out of 100 can't do
That's
is
right.
by themselves.
Yep. Yep.
So that's incredible, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I got to switch gears,
Do
right?
it.
So Aaron, you know,
My life is not that exciting.
sure it is. It's just in a different lens, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
You
different.
know, but you coach leaders, through transformations,
Hmm.
right? And talk about the role of self-awareness. How do they become self-aware of what's going on? And that can help change people change throughout their life.
Oh, if you can help create self-awareness in people, you've unlocked all of their potential. Because the other thing you're working with these individuals is suspending their judgment of themselves. It's like there's just an isness. This is how you're created. When it's not good or bad, because again, that's society judging, what's good, what's bad. You could look at the story of what Thomas just shared and be judging Thomas for what he did or all those things. But that was the things Thomas needed to go through in order for Thomas to become who he was meant to be. And
Yeah.
so the work that I've done and that I continue to do is really around who are you? Like becoming self aware, having radical ownership, and realizing it's, perfect. I remind my kids, I'm like, oh, we're not perfect. It's like you're perfectly where you're meant to be right in this moment. Suspending your judgment of yourself and understanding this right now is a gift. And when you can get people to see that and to unlock that, you just start to see life is gifting you all these things to grow. That there's not good or bad. This isn't a good situation or a bad situation. It's just a situation. And how do I then respond to that in helping C-suite executives unlock that? It also creates an ability to lead more because you're not emotionally charged. You know, where does most of the emotion come from that you see from leaders or coaches or even players? It's like because you have some judgment that you're holding about yourself. That was a good play, that was a bad play, this or that. And so it's just getting them to that state of, this just is, what am I learning and what do I want to apply or do to be different? And in that, it's just, and then you're going to go try something and you're going to learn something and you're going to continue to apply and do it. And you're just going to watch yourself grow. And you're also going to watch yourself become more centered and peaceful and less emotionally charged, because you're just learning life is just lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson.
Yeah.
None of it's good or bad.
Now, how long does that take? Like, do some people pick it up quick, or some people are like, you're almost like, man, how many sessions we got to have before you can open up your stupid eyes and say, what's going on here?
Well, it all depends on the individual. I think if individuals really want to have unlock, if they really want to step into who they are, they want to make the transformation, they want to look at themselves in the mirror and can take radical ownership, it can happen really pretty fast. If you're resistant and you don't see like you're doing anything wrong, or, you know, it's like, I don't want to be here. You know, my boss paid for, you know, if I think back to my corporate, you know, training, or even like parents and athletes together, it's like you want them to show up and go, I want to be here. This is for my transformation, versus like, oh, my mom made me, she signed me up for this sucks. You know, that's going to be a huge roadblock. And so,
Yeah.
you know, you've got to want to have that transformation. But I think helping people understand, who do you want to be? What's the full expression of yourself? And nobody got anywhere without great coaches.
Yeah.
You know, the best of the best of the best worked with not only one, but a multitude of coaches. And
Nobody
so,
gets there alone.
That's
nope.
right.
And so I think helping people have that line of sight, like
Yeah.
there's people here that want you to succeed. I'm here, want you to succeed, but you have to do the work for you to succeed.
Definitely.
So I've
I,
worked with people that have taken it years, and it's like, we're still working on this. It's
Still
like, what the
working.
hell's the roadblock? Like, let's really dig into this. But, you know,
It's
just,
great when you see the light bulb go off, isn't it? It's like, holy
oh,
Totally.
crap. Like, and it
Yeah.
makes everything you do, the work you put into it, like so worth it,
Right.
you
yes.
know?
Yep.
So Thomas, this book,
Correct.
okay, is about kind of how you lost yourself,
Correct.
right? This book
Yep.
is about how you kind of rebuilt yourself,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So what lessons did you learn going from one book to the other? Like what happened?
You know, you just said it. You can't do it alone.
Yeah.
You can't do it alone. You need a team, right? And when I was doing some self-evaluation, it started off as, honestly, Jeff, as a coincidence, right? I was like, okay, let's take a look at your faith. You know, what is your foundation
Hmm.
based off of? You know, let's talk about your family. Let's talk about your finances. Let's talk about your fitness. Let's talk about your fuel. And when I mean fuel, I don't mean just what you eat, but what do you feed in your head, right?
Hey, yeah,
You
your
know,
mind.
are you sitting down doom scrolling and watching Netflix, or are you reading personal development books and listening to podcasts like this? So, and then it just kind of rolled into that, you know, and then, you know, there was a big chapter on fashion. You and I remember when you had to travel for the team, you had to put on a sports coat,
Oh
right?
yeah.
When you're going to represent the team, you know, my dad used to say, when you dress like a gentleman, you act like a gentleman, right?
Yep.
I was in a fraternity. When you went to the house, you had to wear a sports coat. If you came to the table, you had to wear a tie, right?
Yep.
So, you know, we've kind of lost that art. And, you know, I tell the story all the time. I've shared it with Erin that, you know, when I was younger on Sundays, I had to go to mass, then I had to go to Sunday school, then I had to go to the officers club for etiquette class, then I had to come home and mow the lawn and clean the pool. And I was like, Dad, I thought this was a day of rest. And he goes, for me, not for you, for me. So, and I look back on that, and the most incredible lesson I got was etiquette class, right? So along the way, I just kind of dug deep in each F bomb. And then the final one that I'm still working on to this day, Jeff, is forgiveness,
Yeah.
right? And forgiving myself for the things that I've done. When we go back to swim, bike, run, date, there are a dozen people that will never talk to me again, right? There was never any physical violence involved. I had a very high bottom. I never ended up in jail. I never had a DUI. I never got into fist fights. But I said some horrific things to some really good people that didn't deserve it. And, I've tried to make peace. Again, I never went through recovery, but I reached out to them to apologize. So I had to really forgive myself and
Yeah.
allow other people to forgive me. And if they do, great. If they don't, I totally understand
Were
that.
you able to fix some of those things?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
Some of them were responsive. Others, like I said, they just ignored me. But I kept my side of the street clean, right?
Yeah. Okay. So you talk about excuses,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like, how do you get people to stop making them?
Jeff, if you figure that out, or if I figure, that'll be my third book. And if you can figure that out, you'll be a millionaire. I will tell you, you talked about a light bulb moment. If your audience, if you haven't, any of us haven't read Jocko's Extreme Ownership,
I read it.
there you go. That was my light bulb moment. And I was like, and that's when I realized,
Good.
you are,
What
yeah,
about good?
good, good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are responsible. If your life's a dumpster fire, it's your fault.
Yeah.
If you are succeeding in life, it's, the team, right? One of the things when Erin and I work with coaches, we say all the time, a coach is just an incredibly thankless job. The team wins, the athletes get the credit, the team loses, the coach gets fired. That's a tough place
Yeah.
to be. It's a tough place to be. So to answer your question, I really, we just got to, a lot of grace, because these athletes are going to continue to make mistakes. They're going to continue to make excuses, and we have to hold them accountable. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what Erin and I do. You and I are a little old school. Some of the coaching tactics today probably wouldn't work. They'll get you called into the principal's office. They'll get you called into the AD's office.
You get
But
fired.
there you go. There you go.
You talk about excuses. Another book, Brian Tracy's book, No Excuses. I don't know if you read that one.
Bingo.
When I read that book, I swear to God, I'm like, is somebody following me around? Did they write that about me?
Yeah.
I'm like, I did that. I did
Yep.
that.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm still doing that. I'm like,
Yep.
holy smokes,
Yep.
And you talked before about the stuff we put in our heads.
Correct.
If we can just convince the younger people, it doesn't matter what age, let's just say the younger the better, to read that kind of stuff or to
Correct.
listen to that kind of stuff more.
Correct.
How much earlier could we get to them to maybe fix their issues? You know what I mean? Because I didn't
Yeah.
start reading books. This is embarrassing, but until I was 40. I literally,
Really?
I'm like, I'm not reading that crap. I'm not doing that stuff. I'm not doing that. But I've read over 400 books now
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
since then. And I'm like when I get books like yours, it's like I can't put them down,
Yeah.
you know? And but I talk about regret. If I could go back to my 20s and tell myself what you've missed,
Right.
but when I'm in my 20s, I'm not going to listen to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of my life regrets is like, why didn't I start doing this stuff sooner?
Yep. Yep.
Which is crazy.
Well, I'll share real quick, Jeff. I'll share two things I like to talk to the athletes and the families.
Sure.
I say, one, I want it for you, but I can't want it for you. Right. And they're like, well, I don't understand what that means. I said, well, just think about it for a minute. Right. And then we dissect it and so forth. I said, this is on you.
Big.
I could want it for you. And then I say to them, I say, look, Jeff, you're an 18-year-old football player. You're a 22-year-old football player. You're a 24-year-old professional athlete. I've been 18. I've been 22. I've been 24. You haven't been 55.
Yeah.
So take it from me, don't reinvent the wheel, learn from my mistakes. And the worst thing you could do is call me in 10 years and say, Coach, I'm sorry I messed up. You were right.
Yeah.
It's too late.
And then you get the young kids who say, it's different now, right?
All the time.
Oh,
You
you
don't
don't
understand.
understand. Things
Yeah,
have changed.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my God. So Aaron, you talk to a lot of parents,
Yep.
right? And how do you get them to not be so controlling?
God, it's hard. It's so hard. But
Okay, I
I
was trying to
think,
word that right without if anybody's listening, I didn't offend anybody.
yeah. Well, I've been there. I've been that parent that's controlling, and you watch your kids rebel, and you create fractures in your relationship. And the one piece of advice I think I got is I was actually becoming a coach, a professional coach, actually became made me a better parent because
I
it
bet.
taught me two really critical things. Number one, as human beings, we're created whole and complete. My kids were created whole and complete. It's not my job to do some type of completion for them. God gave them to me as I'm their guide, I'm their example, I'm here to support them along the way. But He already made them whole and complete. And so when I kind of had that realization, they're whole and complete human beings. How do I guide that? But then also learning that the best way to communicate is actually to listen, to
Yeah.
stop talking, to create a space where they feel comfortable. And as I've worked on myself as a human being and really exercising kind of those two things, it's amazing what your kids will come to you with to talk to you about stuff because it's like, oh, mom isn't here judging me. And I get really curious with them. I think as parents, we have to get more curious. How do you feel about that? How do you want to handle that? What would you do? You've got to ask those questions because they have an answer.
That's
If they
so
come to
hard
me, it is
as a
hard.
parent because you want to tell,
You
do
do want to
this, do
tell them.
that, right?
Yes, and
Right.
I grew up in that. I love my
Yeah.
parents very much, namely my mom. My dad was more the silent, stoic type, but my mom definitely like it's like if she's kind of always laughs now as we're adults. But if you just did what I told you to do, your life would
Yeah.
be amazing. And it's like, but we all have to walk this journey, and each path is unique for each one of us,
Yeah.
me, and then for each of my kids. And so I think, and also teasing apart too, is parents, how your kids act and behave. We've also created that, like, they're a reflection of you, so parents are like ultra paranoid about, like, okay, if my kid misbehaves, it's a reflection of me. No, it's a reflection of them. How you handle it is a reflection of you. But I think, how do
Mm.
you tease apart what they're doing is not a reflection of who you are? And how do you again set the standard in your house for the way that you behave? And do you hold your children to that standard? And are you, as the parents, living that standard in the household? If you want your kids to be truthful, are you telling the truth? Because if they find that you're lying to them, well, you can't expect them to then be honest with you. And
Right.
so I have found, as a mom, is when I put the oxygen mask on myself, when I've really focused on who I am, how can I show up my best, I
Mm.
give that to my kids, and then it also gives them access to be doing the same things because I'm role modeling that behavior.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
huge. I think I'm changing the way I was parented with my own kids. I know it drives my mom crazy. Sometimes she's like, just tell them what to do. And it's like, it
Yeah.
doesn't work like
Doesn't work
that.
that way anymore.
It doesn't work that way. You shouldn't have been doing that with me, and I'm certainly not going to be
Yeah.
doing it with them. But it's amazing to watch them learn because they start to figure it out.
Sure. So there's people listening right now, like, how do I get a hold of these guys? Like, I want to talk to them. I want to get involved. Maybe they can help my team, my kids. How can they get a hold of you?
Go for it, Aaron.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Thomas. You can find us at blueprintbluechip.com. So we're online. It has everything about who we are, what we do. You can contact us through there. I think all our contact information is on there. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
My email is Erin at erinsarles, sarles.com. Please reach out. I'm super responsive.
Yep.
Parents, I'm on all the social media platforms, is Erin Sarles. We have Blueprint to Blue Chip on Instagram and Facebook. So we're super accessible and responsive. So reach out.
And they can watch the podcast. Don't forget to plug that.
Yeah, we have our podcast that comes out on Mondays and Fridays. I'm like, what days do they release? Oh my gosh. And we have another incredible show called Path to the Pros that's on every Thursday night at 6 o'clock. So we have either future Olympians, Team USA athletes, to guys and gals that have made it pro and what it takes in order to get there. It's live, so you can ask questions, engage. We just want to make this super accessible so people have all the information they need in order to make the best decision. And I think that's what we want to cultivate and create, is a truth, but then access to great information so that they can then make the best decisions for themselves.
That's great. Same question to both of you. There's gonna come a day, and I ask this to everybody on all my shows, where people look back and they hear your name, they see your picture, but you're a memory.
Yep.
And then the word legacy comes into play.
Yep.
So what are you hoping for when it's all over and done? When people look back and they hear your name, see your picture, how do you want to be remembered by all the people that you've touched? And whoever wants to go first.
Ladies first.
Oh, wow. I want people to just remember that Erin saw the best in me and she helped me access that and to step into my full greatness that they were made to express and be here. And that's my life's calling, is I want people to just be themselves, their authentic selves, and to express that into the world and to know that they're unique, special, and there's nobody else but them that has those qualities, and to fully own it and to fully step in it. And so I want people to look back and say, Erin saw that, believed in me, and I realized at least some part of that.
That's great.
Right on.
How are you gonna top that?
Yeah. How do I follow that? There's nothing that you've gone through that I haven't gone through, right? We're all going to experience adversity. And there was a great expression that was once told to me, we're a couple of survivors, different life rafts, right? So let's get in the same life raft and let's row together. Let's overcome this adversity.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So we covered a lot of stuff.
We did.
And we've been going for an hour and a half now here almost. And I don't normally go this long, but there's two of you.
Right.
So there's a lot to cover. Is there anything we haven't touched on or hit that you think we should talk about before we wrap it up?
I think the one thing that we didn't talk about was, there was a nonprofit that I started in my sister's name, right?
Okay.
SilenceTheNoise.org. And my sister battled mental illness her entire life. So in 2023, that was the catalyst for Biking Route 66, was in her honor, to raise money for mental health awareness. And then in turn, all the proceeds go to NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. So something Erin and I are super passionate about is that every individual, whether you're an athlete or not, you're going to come head to head with some type of mental obstacles, whether that's depression, whether that's anxiety, or diagnosed like Tanya. She was manic depressive schizophrenic. And, Jeff, one of the things Erin and I are starting to get into right now is girls flag football, right?
Yeah. Huge.
I say this with all my accolades, right? Between the Ironmans, the college football, to the marathons, and my brothers, 2 high school All-Americans blocking for Marshall Falk. Tanya was the best athlete in the family. And her athletic career was cut short because of mental illness. And I want to make sure that going forward that we all talk about it. It's a platform that needs to be addressed.
Yep.
The more that we talk about it, the more that we address it, the quicker we're going to get through it. So you're not alone. You're not alone. Everybody is battling with it. So silencethenoise.org is a nonprofit that I started in her name, and I am happy to collaborate with anybody. And if somebody needs to reach out, our organization is happy to work with you on any front as far as mental health awareness goes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I would just add, like, let's just suspend our judgments of ourselves. You know, there's nothing truly, really wrong with you. You know, that's, I think, the thing that I think we have to work with these athletes is, and even the parents, is like suspending your judgment of yourself, you know,
Yeah.
and when you start to just realize that this is the journey and there's moments, everything is a learning moment. It's neither good nor bad. That's when life becomes much easier, because you don't have the judgment around it. And so I think just continue to be, you're not doing anything wrong, you know, for the parents out there, you're not screwing your kids up. You also have the opportunity to change the way that you're showing up for them at any given moment. You know, we can change and we can flip on a dime. I think Thomas is an incredible example of that, of somebody that just, that's not who he wanted to be anymore. And that, I mean, the resilience and his ability to stop, I have never, I'm with you, Jeff, I've never seen anything like it.
No.
And so we all have that same capability
You do.
within
You do.
ourselves. And so,
Yeah.
you know, you can change that. You don't have to keep telling yourself that story that you're playing out. And so we just want the next generation of athletes to be incredible leaders in this lifetime and contribute to a positive society where we leave it better than we found it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a miracle within us, right?
Yeah.
You know, and Thomas, what you did with no help, I mean, professional help, let's call it that.
Right.
It's a miracle.
It
That's a,
really is.
that's a miracle.
Totally agree. I totally agree.
You know, I've seen guys, you know, quit doing some basic stupid stuff,
Right.
but not overblown like that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I mean that's a speaking tour in itself. You
Thank you.
know,
Yeah.
I mean,
But it really just you got to want it. And if you want it, you're going to achieve it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you, you know, if you believe it, it'll happen.
Agreed.
You know, and you get what you focus on.
100%.
You know,
Well, the other thing I would just share as a golden nugget for anybody
sure.
listening is it also requires radical ownership. It also
Mm,
requires a radical looking in the mirror and realizing I have a problem.
Yep.
I am the problem and I want something different from this.
Great
Because
point.
if you
yeah,
can't see that, it's never going to change. And so
yeah,
just kudos to you, Thomas, again,
Oh,
for
thank
the radical ownership of that, because that's the flip that switched it for
yeah.
you.
The
you.
easiest person to lie to is the face in the mirror,
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because nobody else knows but you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
guys, man, I guess I can't thank you enough for coming on, you know, and I could probably talk to you for another 2 more hours, you know, and I'm sure you don't want to
Thank,
do that. But
thank,
this has been great. Thank you again, and I look forward to your continued success and I listen to your podcast and every time I see it pop up on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh my God, I got to interview that person too. You
right.
Good.
you know,
Right.
so keep up the great work. And as I always say to everybody when we wrap it up, is just let's just stay strong.
That's it. That's it. Great. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I was really looking forward to this today and you made my day. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you
Feeling
so much.
feelings mutual.
Awesome.